I got really, really scared and I started praying. Today I went to the gym without my headphones, and normally I always wear them because I love to listen to music and sometimes to podcasts while I'm working out. And today, especially, I felt like I needed it because there were some stressful things in my life, and it's nice to focus on something else. And but I feel like it was actually great that I forgot them because I think I connected much more with my thoughts and my body and the messages that they are trying to give to me. And I remember that I was doing a certain exercise and I looked out the window and I saw this light outside. And then I realized it's a reflection of the light from inside. So it's showing that it's outside, but it's an optical illusion, the glass and the light, it creates that. So, and then I thought about how if I go outside, I won't be able to touch that light outside because it's not the same density as my physical body. But still, that light is there. And it made me think of what happened to me 12 years ago. So 12 years ago, I was in a very bad depression. And I think this was 15 years ago, and it got worse and worse and worse. And then when I was 21, I had this spiritual awakening. And in the time, I didn't know what it was. I felt I was losing my mind. I felt like my spine was heating, and in the night, I couldn't sleep. And in hindsight, I know what it was. And in that time, I couldn't really talk to anyone about it except for one colleague, a much older guy. And it was very interesting, the things that he told me, because he had been on his spiritual journey for a really long time. And he was a colleague at this truck factory that I worked. And I remember every single break. Back in the time, I was a student, and that was my student job. And once a week, I would go there, and sometimes I would work extra in the weekend. And I remember I used to love these conversations with him because I didn't have anyone to have these deep conversations with, and he had answers on so many of my questions. And I remember that he gave me books, and yeah, it was amazing, because also the type of work that I did was kind of like a meditation for me, because it was hard work, and you really had to pay attention to the work. And at the time I didn't know this, but in hindsight I understand that it was helping me a lot, that physical exercise. And I want to just share with you something that I experienced some months later after the spiritual awakening. So it was holiday at the time, for school holidays, and I worked extra at that place in the holidays, and I used to, there were 3 shifts, so you could work day shift, evening shift, or night shift. And as a student, I would work only Friday evenings, and then in the holidays I could work whatever shift I wanted. And I loved the night shift, because the night shift you only had to work from 12 to 7, and you got a long break, and the drinks were for free, and it was just like it wasn't so intense as the day shift and the evening shift. So, and you got paid almost the same. But it was, like, the body doesn't really like working in the night, but yeah, I liked it. And but then my parents, they lived very close to the factory, so I would sleep there, and then I would work night shift and then go there. And I remember it, like, the first day is always, you have to get used to it, because you're in a normal rhythm, and then you have to sleep during the day to work the whole night, and it's always, you have to get used to it. And I remember I went to my to the house, to my parents' house, and I try, like, the night before, I try to stay awake so that I'm tired during the day, but it's still always a struggle. And I remember I went there, and I slept in the same room as where I slept when I was a kid. I remember I was tired, but I couldn't sleep. And we had these, what do you call those, like, in front of the windows, that you, like, don't let any light in, these blinders, and the curtains, to make the room really dark. And I remember trying to sleep, and I couldn't. And then it was already getting later, like, I think, like, maybe like 7, 8 in the evening. And I remember I need to sleep, and I felt a strange presence. I felt a strange presence in the room. And then I thought, I've heard of, you hear these things when you talk about, when you have these deep conversations. And I remember thinking, whatever is there, I don't mind seeing it, like, intellectually I knew that there is more than that meets the eye. And I remember sitting in my bed, and I looked to where the door is, and out of nowhere this being is there. It's like it was like a light. It was like a being of light. So I couldn't see like exactly in the form of a human, but with cloth, like covering like in front, and like he was wearing like, I don't know how you say that in English. So it was wearing that, and it appeared out of light. And in that moment, I I was just like shocked, you know. I was like, and very curious. I was very curious because I wanted to know, like I wanted like to communicate, right? So I know, like I wasn't thinking, but I saw the being, and the being saw me, and we connected, and it was as if I could feel that it knew whatever I was thinking, whatever I was feeling, like everything, and I could sense the being. And I remember being very curious, and he felt the curiosity, so it came closer. I wanted it to come closer, so it came closer, and it came closer and closer and closer, and then I wanted to touch the being. So I went like this with my hand, and the being also went like this with its hand. And just before I touched the being, I got really, really scared, and I started praying. uh, yeah, it was, and I really regret that I got scared. I think I was thinking at the time that it might like take over me or something, or even though I could feel that it was benevolent, I could feel that it has so much love and so much. I still, I really regret, because then when I stopped praying, I looked and it was gone. And I remember going downstairs to my mom, telling her, and I was shaking, and my mom just knew. And nothing, um, I've never experienced something like that, and that was the first experience that I had. And what I think it is a higher dimensional being. It makes so much sense, you know, because you know what we see and what we hear, you know, it's a very limited, um, it's so limited to like the frequencies out there, you know, like I mean, like even in science we know that there is so much more than what our senses can perceive, you know. And I believe that there is much more than even science can perceive. I remember thinking in the gym, there is so much out there. There's so much help, and why do we limit ourselves to where our mind wants to go, what, like our past experiences. Because think about it, right? Like, let's say I do something and today, and then tomorrow I'll do something else, and then I'll go read a book, and then I go watch a movie. Can you see that all of that you're gathering in the mind, but all of that is like you accumulated that, right? So, but when we were children, when we were small, we, instead of using all those accumulations and knowing how this human experience should be, we used other things like our imagination. We could perceive so much more. We were so connected to source still. And that made me think about the advice that many people give, and that is be yourself. But be yourself can be terrible advice. And why I say that is because there are so many human beings that live so unconsciously. They're so disconnected from source, from their patterns, from their beliefs, that if you tell them, be yourself, that is actually telling them what they will hear is stay in this pattern, keep these limited beliefs. And but do you see that being yourself can be very limited, and how you can break out of this prison, how you can explore so much more by, instead of being yourself, you're just being, because yourself is just all these things that you gathered, right? With the mind, with the body, your beliefs, your patterns. When you start peeling those beliefs, those patterns away, what you'll discover is that being and this connectedness with everything and everyone. Life is too short to live in that prison, in those patterns, in those beliefs, in that ego. And sometimes spirit needs to, sometimes it knows when you're ready to destroy this ego, to kill the ego, and it often requires suffering. It requires you not having the energy. It requires you feeling disconnected. It requires you not wanting to do anything. And it will literally feel like dying to the ego, to the identity. It feels like you don't have anyone anymore, and you're losing everyone, and sometimes that is needed to wake you up, to for you to let go of who you think you were. Because your mind will do everything in its power to hold on to that identity. I mean, for years and years and years, you thought that that was you. And the body knows. The body knows. You know, sometimes when people say, oh, I want to, I don't mind if my life ends here. But hold your breath, or go with your head in the water, and just listen what your body will tell you. It doesn't want to stay in that water. It doesn't want to die. That's just what the mind, the ego, is trying to convince you of. And for those of you that are struggling, I just want to tell you that you are needed. You are needed. Because if you weren't needed, you wouldn't be here. You have a purpose, and you are loved. You are loved in ways that your mind can't even comprehend. And you are much, much, much more powerful than you think you are. And you are in a safe space. Everything that you do in this realm has consequences on the level of the human experience. And it's a perfect system. It really is a perfect system. I believe that some human beings peeled off so many layers that they actually ascended. Because this physical vessel is dense, and when you peel off these layers, you become lighter, 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 lighter. And I believe that some individuals even put on consciously crave food, because the desire of food is in this density. And if they would let go of the desire to wanting to eat, they would ascend. And there are other ways how look at that, a bird ascending. Did you see that? It's like spirit communicating. Yeah. So yeah, and on the one hand, I would say be yourself in the sense of being not be authentic. Don't try to look at the outside and try to fix things in this density, because this outside is a reflection of what is going on inside. It reflects. So this reminds me of this saying. It goes something like, all truths are but half truths, which means that everything in this realm has an opposite. There is this book that came to me many years ago. It's called The Kybalion. I would highly recommend it. But it even says in the book that the book will find you if you are ready for it. And I understand that, because I think many people, when they read it, they would be like, what is this? Like the first time I read it, it was very interesting, but I understood it superficial, on such a surface level. And over the years, I read it over and over, but like sometimes, like when I run into it, right? And every time I look into it, I understand it on a deeper level. It's like with life, right? Like with certain situations, you understand it, and then years later you run into the same situation and you understand on a deeper level. It's with books as well, right? But certain books, they go so deep. It's like these ancient truths, these axioms. If you're still watching, I want to say thank you for listening. I just know that someone needs to hear this. And when I say that, it's not actually me, it's this knowing, it's this spirits that communicates, that goes through. It just, you will recognize this feeling. I want to say namaste, which means the God in me greets the God in you, which is a beautiful greeting. And maybe I'll see you in the next video. Peace.